Right now, New Zealand is asking itself a dangerous question. Are we building too much government and not enough city? Christopher Luxon wants to tear down the walls of regional councils. Chris Bishop wants you to pay for every road you drive on, every drop you drink. Maurice Williamson has been in the ring for all of it. Former Cabinet Minister, current Auckland Councillor, a man who's seen how power works both when it's in your hands and when it's slipping through your fingers. Today, he's here to talk about the price we're willing to pay for progress.
Financial freedom faster. Financial freedom faster.
Before we get into it, the Mortgage HQ Snapshot isn't for spectators. It's where New Zealand's sharpest property investors go when it's time to move. No noise, no guesswork, just the tactical insight behind thousands of real Kiwi wins. Descriptions below, click it, read it, then you won't regret it. Maurice, do we need regional councils?
We need a lot less politicians right across the nation. The Auckland Council has more elected politicians than the country.
It's crazy.
If you take the 161 local board members we've got and the 20 councillors, we've got way more elected politicians at Auckland Council than the country has. And that is just a recipe for a whole lot of people who don't agree with each other because they fight like Kilkenny cats. But that's not the worst of it. You've now got huge numbers of local authorities, be it the Huranui District Council with 8,000 people or the Carterton District Council with 9,000 people that it covers. That's not even a small enough unit to sort of think of it as being a ward of a council. You've literally got to have, I think, local government reform in which you went to the equivalence of what Auckland is like, and that you went, say, the Bay of Plenty and the Waikato becoming a second one, anything south of Taupo down to Wellington becoming a third one. Let's go with the top of the South Island and the bottom of the South Island. 5 or 6 big councils that run the whole place, that you get rid of all the regional councils that way, but you also get rid of all the little tin pot local authorities. But you won't, because they'll fight like Kilkenny cats to keep themselves in a job and keep their mayoral chains and so on. I tried to get rid of local government in my roading reforms. At the end of the 90s, I put a package out called Better Transport, Better Roads, in which we set up a proper corporatised model with a balance sheet and a return on investment for companies across the country that owned all the roads.
Yeah.
One of the things people don't understand is, like in Auckland, half of the roads are owned by the council and managed and done by them, and then all the motorways and all of the off-ramps for them, they're all owned by the government because they're state highways. And so there was always a fight about it's yours, no, it's yours. Pakuranga Highway with 80,000 cars a day, more than any car road just about in the country, including all the state highway, is a local road and funded out of your rates. And then you'll go to the back of Taihape and there'll be a state highway that's got 5 cars a day and it's funded by your taxes through central government. So the reform's desperate. I don't know how you'll ever get it, because there'll always be enough vested interests warring against you to make it. You'll have to take a big call. But I think New Zealanders are starting to get to the point they are over-governed.
Well, National and the coalition government did campaign on cutting headcount in the bureaucracy. How come it hasn't happened? They're spending, based on a recent excerpt from the Taxpayers Union, government's still spending their COVID peak. How are they spending so much money, not getting rid of people, and so deeply unpopular?
I cannot even begin to explain. I mean, it just makes no sense. They made a big fuss about the number of bureaucrats that had grown exponentially, exploding. And I thought, yes, now you're talking. Wind it right back to 2017 levels or whatever, which is what I thought there was the rhetoric they were using, which exploded while the current Labour government's been in for the 6 years, 17 to 23, and we're going to wind it all back. The winding back has been a timid little flick of the dial, mainly for the unfilled vacancies and a handful of other people. That's not. I mean, if you look at what Milei has done in Argentina, he's closed down so many ministries altogether, gone, and others he's just literally shredded them and just cleaned out the huge number of waste. There's a wonderful graph that's circulating now. You might put it up on your screen as part of the show, as terms of the number of full-time staff at the Reserve Bank.
Yeah.
And it's an exponential growth.
Over 650 people.
Why? Why? You're doing the same job. You're managing monetary policy. Why do you have to have a whole swack of middle management and senior tier management and senior leadership team? And that is because those things have got a life of their own unless you have a government that comes in and just puts the clampers on and says, gone. And the fact that we've got ministries to Africa, I mean, we have more ministries than I think some countries have people. And I don't know what's that for. We don't know what these ministries are all for. We've got a minister for the South Island. I mean, what does that mean?
I mean, do we have a minister for North Island?
Well, we should have, and we should have a minister for the lower North Island and for the... I mean, you see how silly it gets.
Yeah.
And I literally was hoping when the government got elected, we would see a complete blowtorch put through the wastage of New Zealand taxpayers' money in the bureaucracies, and I haven't seen it, and I don't know why. I don't know whether it's they're too timid. They were always going on about, oh, well, that's why we lost Wellington Central and why we lost Rongotai, because there's a huge number of bureaucrats, public servants, live in Wellington, and we lost it because of the election campaign. But actually, in fact, because we've reduced such a handful of it, it wouldn't be enough to have swung the dial on the voting thing, even if their families and their kids were all voting because of it. So it's just makes no sense, and it's something the government has to move on quickly.
Take us behind the scenes. When you're a minister and you're working on something big like education, how do you work across party lines with thoughts to the future so that there's not constant flip-flopping on policy?
Correct. We used to call it light switch policy. You do this, and 3 years later, the light switches flick the other way, and then they go out, you come back in. So you try to avoid that because there's always massive costs for making the change. It's a lot to do with personalities. I found a lot of people in the Labour Party that I had to deal with from time to time really good to work with. Never breached a confidence. I would brief them on what I was trying to do in, say, like the transport portfolio. I would then ask for their feedback. I would try and incorporate it. When I bought in the photo driver's license in 1998, we didn't have the numbers in the National Party because a whole lot of the rural people were being pushed by federated farmers not to allow it because they thought it was evil to have a driver's license when you were on your tractor and you wanted to go to town to get some twine. And Labor, Helen Clark said to me, well, I'm going to allow some of ours to cross the floor and give you the numbers because we think the photo license is a good thing to do. And I think 8 Labor crossed and we got the bill through. So there is always that trading, and often there used to be a snooker room. I think it's still there, but I don't think it gets used. You'd go into the snooker room at night and have a beer with some of them, chat through what's going on. They would say, well, we don't agree with that. And I say, yeah, but I think we can get to a halfway house. Because, as I said, every 3 years, if the entire big picture stuff all changed, we'd end up with nothing but a washing machine going round and round. And that's what I think Erica Stanford was trying to do with this NCA, which has been a dog ever since it got started. Byron Bentley, who was the principal of Maclean's College here locally, he worked with me to try and mount a major campaign to get people to understand what damage having internal assessment with sort of soft numbers like achieved, even if you didn't really do anything. If you got 2 achieved, you won't need to sit an exam. He just said this is going to dumb down the education system, and it has.
Yeah.
What I found interesting about the numbers she released was that the performance of the students in internal assessment was nearly twice their performance in the externals. Now, that can't be.
Yeah, so it's bullshit numbers.
They're bullshit numbers. If you don't think the teachers have got their fingers on the scale when those numbers are coming out, because it's their neck on the line, have they taught well? And I know for a fact, because I talk to a lot of people in the teaching profession who say, I've heard colleagues say, yeah, nah, we'll give them it's a low excellence, but we'll give them a low excellence because we don't want to just give an achieve.
Yeah.
Now, you've got to have that external moderation. You've got to have marks. You've got to know. At that time, one of the things I thought I got a point away that when people are swimming down the Olympic swimming pool at the Olympics, the guy who touches the concrete 0.1 of a second ahead of the other 0.1 of a second, he comes first and gets a gold medal.
Yeah.
Is the second guy a loser? Well, he came second, but he didn't win. But that's what life is about in everything you do in business. Your business could be making, $1 million a year, but the guy down the road's making $3 million. That's just the world. And we've said we don't want to make anyone feel like a loser. We don't want to make anyone feel inferior. You've all participated. We get a participation certificate because you showed up. And the number of parents who say that the biggest thing about the whole of NCA that drove them was their kids saying, I'm not going to go to the exams. I've got enough credits now. I've got over the mark.
So the irony of trying to get everybody to not be a loser is people stop trying and become losers.
You dumb down the whole lot.
Yeah.
In fact, instead of it lifting everybody to a higher level, what you're doing is dragging everyone down. And I am literally just so grateful, because I worked heavily in the political world to try and overturn NCA, but we just couldn't. Trevor Mallard was absolutely wedded to it and thinks it was going to be great. Erica Stanford deserves an absolute attagirl for having taken the brave courage, but the fact that Labor wouldn't even engage in it or didn't even respond to it is despicable.
And if we look at the RMA as another example, is this coalition government going to be able to cross party lines and get some consensus, or it's not going to happen?
Well, one would hope so, because you'd have to be blind, deaf and dumb to not know the costs that are being added to even the most ordinary of projects. I got a guy from West Auckland call me the other day. He is trying to replace a septic tank. Okay, he's got a septic tank in the ground at where he lives because it's not on main flow.
Grid, yeah.
It's not on the grid. And the tank's getting worn out and rusted and broken, and he's got to replace it. So far, he spent $18,000 on getting a consent, of which he had to consult with the local iwi. That took $3,000. Now, I'm sorry, but the one rule I would have is if it's the same tank, but you're just putting a new one in, there's no consent at all.
You're going to dig it out, put the new one in.
There's no consent at all. Same spot, same site, same function, same role. But we have literally bound ourselves as a nation in such red and green tape that now I know a number of people said, well, I was going to do the following. And I went, nah, not worth it. I can't. It's just not worth it. I'll drag on and I'll drag on. So hopefully common sense will prevail, at least within Labor. I don't think you'd ever get the Greens into the common sense space, and you certainly won't bring Te Pāti Maori with that big leap. But if you had the major party, although the Greens say Labor won't be the major party anymore, but if you had the major party saying, no, look, we'd gone too far with this stuff. The whole Resource Management Act that Geoffrey Palmer drew up, and we passed it. National passed it all. I can remember sitting there in the early 90s saying, guys, I've got so many people from the development community and the business community saying, please backtrack on this. And we didn't. We went and banged it all. Simon Upton, as the Minister for the Environment, banged it all through the Parliament and was really happy we'd done this great thing. Well, it's been a sea anchor for development ever since. It's dragged us down badly. Trying to do anything at all has taken years to even consent, let alone the costs of it. And we have got to, if we're going to compete back in the real world with other nations and try and keep our standard of living up, we have got to have, yes, some protection so we don't do some ghastly, monstrous stuff that wrecks the environment or whatever. But it's around about sort of 20% of what's currently in the RMA that I think has to happen. And the vast bulk of it has just got to be the books and so on. Did you see Bishop brought to the House the other day a 600-page document about how you have to lay out your road cones?
It's unbelievable. And
how many centimetres between each one?
It's a Monty Python skit, really.
If you saw that on Monty Python, you'd be rolling around, let's say, the Ministry of Silly Cones or something. And that has been the way we've had to function.
Well,
and we watch other countries' economic GDP going through the ceiling and just building stuff left, right and centre and growing. And we go, well, why don't we do that?
Yeah. And more councillors means more regulation because people have to give themselves something to do. If we look at real life examples, we're looking at nearly 80 view shafts in Auckland to protect our views of volcanoes. Chris Bishop's trying to push something through to say, hey, we can develop Auckland. We can go up, we can go out, but mostly we need to go up. This is going to impact the view shafts. What's the consensus in Auckland Council?
There's no the word consensus doesn't exist. There's 20 councillors. They aren't represented by political parties, although there's about 5, I think, that stand for Labor. But the rest of us are all individuals. See, my view is, yes, it's lovely that I can be in a street somewhere and I can look and I can see Mount Eden or I can see Mount Albert and so on. But how much of that value is it compared to having fantastic, good residential housing for people on a rail line that allows them to walk out their door, jump on the train and be wherever they work in minutes at really low cost? And they might have to walk to the end of the street, or they might have to go around the corner before they get to see the mountain. And my big question is, when you're out in the morning and you're heading towards work, how many people say, where's the mountain? I can't see. Oh, my God, my life's ruined because I can't see the mountain. And so this whole view shafts thing is a wonderful if we were Qatar, wonderful if we were Kuwait, and we had just so much money we didn't know what to do with it. And we could say, well, we'll dig underground and build because we can keep the view shaft view. Common sense has to say, the more we can keep of it, the better. I don't want to be the hun at the gate and just say, who cares, we'll rip it apart. But the really important thing for Auckland's growth, rather than the stupid MDRS we were building 3-story pieces of junk right next to someone's valuable house, is to go to those major transport corridors, then the walking distance or whatever from them, so that you can walk to the train station or you can walk to the bus station. And then along those corridors, where in many cases I've gone out and looked at some of them in the plan, they've got second-hand car sale lots or something.
Yeah.
That's where you should be putting 12 or 15-story apartments. No car parking if you wish. I would put car parks, but they're some of the ones that want to solve the environmental solution because you can walk out. I mean, I lived in London, worked at British Airways, and I never owned a car and never wanted a car.
Yeah.
Because the train system was so fantastic for them. Okay. And so the plan now is to try and really intensify the housing built on all of those major transport corridors. And the argument that's coming back is, but if you build those, you will ruin my view of Mount Eden in the morning. I'm sorry, you can't. Go to any other successful country in the world, because here's the test, always the test. Go to a country that's booming where their citizens, you go to Singapore and their GDP per capita is exploding and their standard of living is growing and so on. And ask them, do they have such rules that you can't build if it might destroy your view of the hill there or something?
Yeah.
And they would look at you saying, what are you talking about? What on earth are you talking about?
If you want an unobstructed view, you have to be on a hill or...
Well, actually, if you're in your tall apartments, you'll get a much better view of the mountains. It's the same old. We've had that all along. Some of the housing estates, which we've all said, you can't change those now. They've got such history to them and so on. And I don't want. I think that Town Hall and the ferry buildings and a whole lot of others should actually have that heritage status.
But not so many.
But hang on, we've got a big grey rectangle high-rise sitting in the middle of Aotea Centre called the Civic Administration Building. It is the most ugly gas. It used to be the council's head office.
Yeah.
Just before they got out of it and moved to the ASB building, they made it a heritage site so no one could sell it or do it or change it. It was built in 1966.
Yeah.
Any apparatchik of the Central Communist Party in Czechoslovakia would have thought they'd done a wonderful job to build this big square block. And it's got heritage status.
Yeah.
It's, for me, the most ghastly thing in town, and you could have built a lovely modern, what they've done with Commercial Bay downtown, whatever. So we've got to stop the lunacy of we've just got to protect this, we've got to stop that, we can't have that, we'll have a whole lot of RMA. If we do that, we just slide further and further down the scale, and more people are on the plane to Australia, and we keep worrying about that. Well, what's the driving force? They're going for it, and we're not.
If we look at how the world's reacting to the tariff situation, has New Zealand made this big mistake that's led to a 15% tariff instead of 10%? Where have we gone wrong?
I think it's very simple. Trump's got a little graph like I have here, and it's just all the countries that are in surplus and all the countries that are in deficit. So like the United Kingdom's got a sweetheart deal, Australia got the 10%, Netherlands, Hong Kong, because they've all got a trade deficit with the United States. We've got a 1.1 billion surplus. It's tiny. It hardly gets on the scale relative. China at 270 billion, Mexico at 157, Ireland at 80 billion. Ireland, same size country, same number of people, should be about the same trading as New Zealand. 80 billion surplus with their trade with America. So Trump has just picked up a graph like I've got here. He's drawn the line at where it goes from zero and says anyone that we're selling more to than they're buying from us, we'll allow them to have 10. Anyone that's above it, because it's easy, it's really easy, you don't have to do any work, we'll just put them at 15 as a starting point and bang them higher as we go. Or India, you're selling you're buying crude from Russia and then reselling. Okay, we'll make yours 50.
But we look towards the summer break that's coming in a few months. We're all hanging out. It's going to be the barbecues where people are talking about the election and who they're going to vote for and how the government's going. What is the recommendation for people to start thinking about? How do we decide whether we give this coalition government another term?
Well, I would have thought just have to close your eyes and think of what the other side looks like, and close your eyes and think of what the other side's track record was. They shouldn't darken the door of government for at least another 3 terms based on how badly they put us into where we are. But that's not the public's view. Right now, in the current polling, in fact, I think in the latest Courier poll, they're actually slightly ahead of National. Now, that is quite frightening. I want to make sure you understand that it's not myths and legend stuff, the barbecue season. We did some quite deep analytics about people. When did you make up your mind? What cemented that and so on? When everyone gets that freedom of the break from sort of Christmas Eve or whenever till middle of January or later, they're off with their friends. They've got friends coming to a barbecue. They're at the beach. They're fishing and so on. And they chat. And it turns out that Christmas, New Year break before the election or the beginning of the election year, it bakes in a lot of the views of people that don't change. Mm-hmm. They've changed. This lot are not cutting the mustard. And so my message has trying to be to everyone in the current government I talk to is, you should not even be on the same pitch as the other lot because they've been so dreadful. Mm. And the Prime Minister always gets an amazingly higher polling for the preferred leader than does the leader of the opposition. Let me tell you that when Helen Clark was the leader of the opposition, she was in the sort of Mrs. 2% Banksy called her. She was just literally in the really low numbers. She became Prime Minister at the end of 99 and within no time at all was polling in the 25, 30s, 35s because you're the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
And for Luxon to be identical at this point, for him to be identical with Chris Hipkins, who was the architect of all of the stuff we had with COVID, who was the architect of education and NCEA, who's the architect for a list of things that will just make make you weep.
Yeah.
They should not be on the same playing pitch, but they are, and that says more about what National's got to do to lift its game, to actually deliver on some of the rhetoric. For example, we're going to take an axe to the public service and really bring the bureaucracies down in numbers. That hasn't happened. I don't know why. They may have their reasons. I can't see it. But if you don't do that, then the worst thing in politics that creates negative votes is unfulfilled expectations.
Yeah.
You create an expectation that you're going to do something, and then you don't do it, you'll get a lot more damage from that than just not starting to have the expectation in the first place and not doing it. And so I just hope, like one thing, that before we get to the end of the year and the barbecue season starts, that the government of the day realises they've got to start delivering on some of the things that they said they were going to.
And if we were to look at either Auckland Council or the government, you can choose and you've got to cut the cost by half and you've got 12 months to do it. Where are you going to start?
Well, they're two different things. Government, you've got the numbers. And so I just can't believe that I've worked in both worlds. In government, when you're a minister, you can pull a whole lot of stuff together, write it all up, give it to your officials and say, bring that back as a bill, we'll bang it into the Parliament and stick it through in next month. And you've got the numbers. The whips go down and call all your backbenchers who don't like what you've done and say, you either vote with us or you're gone, Charlie Horse. You never have a job again.
Yeah.
But in council, there are 20 loose cannons all sitting around the table. And I've been to council meetings where I've tried to work out, Fred will go this way, but what about Mary? Where will Jim go? Jim's gone with Mary because Mary wants him to support something with regards to a local park in her street.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with council.
You can't vote.
There's no whipping. And so when Mayor Brown keeps referring to, the centre-right councillors didn't get their way, we don't have a centre-right. There isn't such a group. There are sort of left, there's extreme left, there's lunatic left, and there's almost communist. But there's hardly anybody that thinks like I do, which is more centre-right or whatever. And so the votes are often, I voted in things where I voted 2 of us one way and 18 the other. And that means that it's much harder for the mayor, because he has to go with the numbers, as opposed to the Prime Minister, because he's got the numbers. Prime Minister's got the numbers, there's your bill, put it in the House, whips will bring it through. So the mayor's got to everything, make compromises, take a bit off this, give you a bit of that, change this over, still 3 short, or we'll give them a chairmanship of a committee because you get some more money for that, but we'll bring that person back over to here.
So the funny thing is, Mayor Wayne Brown, who will probably get another term
Oh, he certainly will.
because no one votes, is more like Argentinian President Javier Milei. And if he had the power, Wayne Brown would make massive cuts.
If he had the numbers,
But he doesn't have the power.
he doesn't have the numbers.
And the other side of the coin is Christopher Luxon has the power,
And doesn't seem
but
to
he's
use
not making the cuts.
it. No.
So should we swap him around?
And I don't understand why. I just don't. It's all very well to say, I've got a corporate mentality and I set these KPIs and I hold my ministers to account. None of that even rustles the leaves on the trees for your ordinary voter out there. How does they feel in Struggle Street? Do they feel better? I mean, you ask anybody now, because this is what Labor will do in their campaign. I can guarantee you they'll run a campaign as, do you feel better now than you did when 3 years ago? Is that right? And that's why I said at the time, I was on several media saying before the last US presidential election, Trump will walk it. He'll just run do you feel better now under the 4 years of the Democrat president or not? And of course they didn't. Things were tight, money was tight, their incomes were lower, costs were going through the roof, inflation was going through the roof. Now he's going to have he can't get re-elected, so he won't have to worry because he's not allowed to stand again. But in the end, what you do need as a political party is for people, when they're going into an election campaign, to say, I think these guys are doing well. I think they've got it right. I think Erica Stanford has picked a particular big stream of that with NCEA. But you need a whole swag of other ministers delivering those sort of big flipper type announcements that go, yes, well done, good. Because the one thing that people care about more than anything is their kids and their kids' future. And the grandparents even consider it more about their kids and their kids' future. And so I just don't know why. They'll have their own reasons, I'm sure. But from my point of view, I'm panicking now when I see Labor polling better than National and when I see Hipkins and Luxon getting the same preferred leadership. There's something really wrong.
Maurice Williamson, appreciate your insights today and look forward to catching up again soon. Before we go, you don't want motivation, you want ammunition. Moves that work, tactics that win. The 3 property formula is the playbook smart Kiwis are already using, while the rest are still refreshing Trade Me and panicking at interest rates. No fluff, no webinars, just results from the front lines. Get the strategy, own the edge, grab the book before someone else buys your future.